frugal living, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, if you are trying to live your best frugal life, then in my view, it's a great thing to be doing. You're careful with your money, you seek value in everything you buy, your time and resources are always put to good use. You get to cut a corner or two, and of course you get to brag about it on money Twitter. On the other hand, frugal living is an awful phrase. It sounds terrible, it sounds like a miserable existence. I mentioned before that some unkind folks reckon that frugal living with the aim of retiring early is just living a miserable existence so that you can retire early and live a miserable existence. I don't agree with this. I'd much rather take the view that frugal living allows me to pursue my own financial goals. It lets me prioritise how I'm spending my money the best way I see fit, while at the same time not cluttering up my life with things I don't need or I don't want. And it sounds a little bit weird to say that, because why on earth would anyone buy things they don't need or they don't want? But we do it all the time. We buy things that will just make do. Sometimes it's out of boredom, sometimes it's just as a result of some good advertising, sometimes it's just well-placed products while we're doing our shopping. But ultimately, we all do it. We all let go of some of our money when we don't necessarily mean to. Of course, I'm David from prettypenny.club. I make videos on investing, passive income, frugal living, and content on trying to make your money work harder for you. Subscribe if that sounds good to you. So frugal living, while there are many advantages, it isn't always easy, and getting on the frugal train can take many forms and present many challenges. So with that in mind, I asked my Twitter followers for their very best frugal living tips, and this video is all about what they came up with. Don't forget to go and make sure you go and check out these guys on Twitter. Some great accounts there. And even if you aren't on that platform, why not just go and have a browse? You might pick up something new. So the call to action was very, very simple. Give me your best frugal living tips. I'm going to make a video, and those tips selected will get a shout out on my next video. Can't wait to hear your original ideas. There were some familiar ones, some common sense ones, some new ones for me anyway, and a fresh perspective on a couple of things you might already know. So let's just get straight into them. Restyle your clothes. Change your accessories to get nice outfits without having to buy a whole new wardrobe. Okay, so this is a pretty good one. So much has been made of clothing waste recently. Big retailers are coming under heavy fire for creating this kind of throwaway clothing culture. And to be fair, I've seen a few manufacturers fighting back, but I thought this was a great tip. I hope it doesn't come across as a bit sexist, but I think it's fair to say that this represents a better opportunity for the ladies maybe than the men. The ladies are so often under pressure to have a new outfit everywhere they go, whereas I can get away with probably a new shirt at a push. So this tip from Katie is a great one. Get some new accessories or amend some old garments in some way. Happy days, a fresh look and money saved. Learning to cook about 5 to 6 basic meals will save you so much money and make you healthier. Most of the recipes I cook take 15 minutes, which is quicker than a Deliveroo order. This one from the Wealthster is so true. Cooking at home is a lot easier than people might think, and I know it might seem like a bit of a drag after working all day that you don't want to be standing making meals, but hear me out. When you cook at home, you know exactly what you're putting in your meals. Every supermarket has discount shelves too, so you can pick up meat, bread, tins, pretty much anything. 36p for a loaf? Class. If you're not going to be able to use those items that day, then buy stuff you can freeze and keep. You'll save so much money compared to the constant takeaways full of salt and fat and goodness knows what else. And even then, all that filler might well be cold by the time you get home to eat it. Better meals with the right ingredients leave you feeling so much better too. And further, since you're making your own grub, you can make as much or as little of it as you want. So make extra, batch cook, save time, buy in bulk, make more meals than you need, but freeze them, and then the next time you need a good meal, just go and lift one out of the freezer. It's so easy. I can definitely get behind this one from the Wealthster. Buy a bean to cup coffee machine for home, order the cheapest wine at a restaurant, time your purchases, negotiate or ask for a discount, and buy second hand or borrow. These suggestions from Joni are classics. If you aren't doing some of these things, then you should be. Asking for discounts is easy, and you'll be surprised how often this works. Salespeople everywhere have discretion, be it with new customers, offers, student offers, or just trying to get a sale. But how you spend your own money is such a tough topic for someone else to comment on, right? Where one person sees value, another will see a total waste of money. So things like making your own coffee versus buying out, or what wine order you choose, will always be contentious. The principles are sound though, and Darren touches on it as well. Spend mindfully, i.e. consider needs over wants, and have a 2-day cooling off period before a big purchase. Spend mindfully. This is the root of it all. Be aware of what you're spending your own money on and sleep on big purchases before you dive in. This is such a good tip. You will prevent yourself from potentially wasting megabucks on an impulse buy. I get stick from my chums because I have this thing called a 3-week rule, but honestly it has stopped me from buying everything from a PlayStation 5 on a whim to a drone that I probably couldn't fly anyway to a set of turntables because I thought mixing was cool. I was a bit younger at the time. I'm not going through any sort of crisis right now, but the urge to buy left me nearly as quickly as it arrived, and I was glad I hadn't spent big money on those particular things. The things you buy are paid for in the hours you've worked. And when I think of it like that, I wouldn't have been too proud of those particular purchases. But here's an interesting twist. Have a look at what Elliot has to say. Swap buying takeaway 2 to 3 times a week for going out for a dining experience that costs a bit more than a takeaway once a month. I find that a really nice £50 meal out once a month completely kills off the urge to spend 30 quid a week, £120 a month plus on takeaways. Elliot has taken the decision to mindfully treat himself to a nice meal out once a month or so rather than hemorrhaging his money on takeaways. And I get this. It's worth spending money on a good experience and again where you find value. It's easy to get into a rut of sorts and just bleed money routinely on what isn't necessarily good for you. Elliot is putting into practice the idea of mindfully spending his own money, and I love that. This next one is certainly food for thought. Canadian newcomer said, the pandemic taught me getting a job that would allow me to work from home is the greatest frugal tip of ever. No commute means no need for a car, you save on insurance, maintenance, gas, dressing up, lunch delivery at work, etc. Remote working, wow, it might be a big departure from what you might be used to, but I think a lot of folks could relate to this one. Look at the savings. Commuting, definitely. Fuel costs, definitely. Insurance, probably. Work clothes, definitely. You can work in your trunks if you want to. There are no awkward social obligations to meet if you aren't a fan of those parties and so forth. If your line of work allows it, it could definitely be an option. I'm a programmer, so there are lots of companies offering fully remote working opportunities, and that's either part-time or full-time, and in many ways taking one of these jobs could effectively be an instant pay rise if you aren't already working at home. The savings could be huge given your own circumstances, and usually when you leave a job it does mean an actual pay rise in terms of salary, so there is a big potential upside to this one. Yeah, interesting one. Nature's Adventurer says, I tracked how many hours in a month I used various subscriptions and realised that other than Audible, Netflix, everything could go. Gym, Xbox, Now TV, and the list goes on. This suggestion is a fresh look at a frugal living tips staple. Money Twitter, frugalistas, money savers and peddlers of the same old will tell you that you need to get rid of subscriptions that you don't use, cut the direct debits and clean up the bills that you've been accumulating for far too long because you've probably been too lazy to do anything about it. And that's a little bit unfair to call out huge numbers of people who give this kind of advice because it's good advice. Why on earth would you spend money on stuff you don't use? Well, you wouldn't. So how do you know if you use it or not? And I mean beyond the kind of wishy-washy, oh yeah, I can use it kind of notion. You track your time, clock the hours you spend using what you're paying for, and at the end of a couple of months or 6 months or whatever, you have some data to back you up. Data to tell you how much you're spending to get what you're getting out of it. Once you have this information, then you get to decide on a pounds per hour rate or whatever basis you decide upon whether it's worth keeping on what you're paying for or not. Keep what is and get rid of what isn't. It's very, very simple. So there are some great suggestions in there, definitely worth a bit of thought. Don't forget to go and follow these guys on Twitter for more content like this. And of course, if you've got any tips yourself, make sure you're leaving them in the comments below. Subscribe as well if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.